And welcome, folks, to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. I'm your host, Pastor David. And, folks, we got a great conversation that we're going to have today. We're going to talk a little bit more about the tariffs, and we're going to talk a bit more about the Democratic Party and how they left this country and how bad of a shape that it was in. So if you ain't got nothing to do, call your friends and let them know you're listening to Let the Truth Be Told radio. I'm your host, Pastor David. Y'all come on in. I'm your host. Thank you. I'm your host, Pastor David. And listen, we got a great conversation today. So first, let me give all praises to God and my Lord and Savior, Yahshua of Nazareth. And I want to welcome everybody to the show. Folks, I want to ask that you continue to share the show. Go to our Rumble channel and subscribe. That's David Low 1057, but if you put rumble.com in /user/David Low 1057 and subscribe to the channel. Also subscribe to our Moments of Truth channel on YouTube. That's momentsoftruth.com, 9920.com, and join it. Don't cost you nothing. But like I said, we're getting prepared to go to a new network. We'll have Roku, we'll have Fire, we'll be all over the country. And we're going to continue to bring information to the American people and patriots across this country so we can break it down and explain things to you and show you exactly what's going on, because we don't need to get caught up with another situation of what we saw in the last 4 years. And in saying that, let me get my co-host in. Hey, Doc, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Now, Doc, let me lay the groundwork for this. To the American people and patriots across this country, what we're seeing is a last-ditched effort. And to athletes, that's like you got like 0.0 seconds on the clock, and you got receivers, and you just throw the ball down to the end zone, hoping for somebody to catch it.
Yeah, Hail Marys.
Yeah, that's the reason why I'm laughing is because it's really serious that what we are seeing a total meltdown of the Democratic Party. And it should be so, because the American people deserve proper leadership. And as I've spoken, as taxpayers, America is a corporation, Doc. And so we deserve to have government that could make us debt-free. And now to the American people and patriots across this country, all of us, even Democrats, we pay taxes. I'm appealing to common sense right now. Our common sense should say that if we run the government and we pay politicians good salaries to make sure they take care of the best interests of the country, and if they are not doing that, the American people and patriots across this country, they need to know about it. Your thoughts, Doc?
Yeah, I mean, I usually say this on the regular. If I had my way, they'd be in prison, the House and the Senate. They would just be in jail right now. They would not be able to stand before us because they are not doing their jobs. As a citizen, I expect you to do your job. As a shareholder of this company, I expect you to do your job. Either way, you need to do your job. You do not get to dictate to me what's going to be done. You're supposed to do what is, according to the Constitution, really stand up for this country. And there are far too many congressmen and women who have sold out to the point that they've just sold out our country to other countries, and it needs to stop.
Well, you know, the open door policy that have been had for years until President Trump's first term, the borders was being used accessible, you know, for a lot of people who wanted to bring people in. They could bring them through Canada. I mean, it was more of a subtle type still into the country. But when the Biden-Harris administration got in, it was like, we don't even care. We don't care if the American people, because that was the psychological things that they were doing to us, because they felt so brazen that at this time, or it was a last ditch effort that needed to happen because they needed the replacement migration. And so, you know, whatever that it was not the best thing that political leaders should have been doing for the citizens of the United States of America. Let me say that like that, you know. And so now that we see, and this is why I'm saying this to the American people and patriots, because now as Americans, we are going to have to stand in unison together, because we see that there's so much corruption in our federal government that we cannot let a party like the Democratic Party continue to create situations, because, you know, we're having the race baiters like Al Sharpton now. They're out here trying to start marches about the DEI. Al and them trying to trick black people to coming out, and then they're going to bring illegals out with them and mix them like we supposed to be all one big game. It's all of this posturing and game playing, and none of it is benefiting the black people nor the American citizens. Your thought, Doc?
It's not. And, you know, and I think, and one thing that I see as a positive is that the Black community is starting to see this. It's like, no, we're not going to come out so you can exploit us and use us to your benefit. It's like, that needs to stop. It's almost like, okay, well, we need the Black people because they have all the civil rights, they have the sympathy. And so without them, we can't get this done. So they're just rallying people behind these identity politics. And this, it's more propaganda than anything, especially with the destruction of the different Tesla dealerships. And they're really trying to, like I said before on one of our shows, they really need martial law at this point because they have nothing else. They need riots in the street because they have nothing else. They really do not have a position. You know, there used to be a time in this country where Republicans and Democrats, they could see eye to eye and they say, you know what, we're both going to support whatever bill this is because it's beneficial to the country. And they weren't being divisive just to be divisive. And now we're at a point in our country where it's like, well, I can't go along with you because you're a Republican, or I can't go along with you just because you're a Democrat, right? Well, there are certain bills that each party can champion behind, and they should have an unbiased, nonpartisan position. But there's so much in the trenches that I just don't see where we go from here politically.
Well, you know, and this is why I say it is important for stations like ours to break things down to the American people so that they can get a good idea and use common sense tactics to deal with the issues, because there is a problem here in the United States with the political party. You know, it's one bird with two wings, but they have entrenched themselves against each other so bad that they are not concerned about the American people welfare. It's about it's a couple of things. See, it used to be where politicians would come together, even though they had differences, because there was honor amongst thieves.
Right.
There was honor amongst thieves. And so when it came down to the public and when it came down to the people of the country, those thieves got together and they made sure they did the right thing for the country.
Right.
Whether they hated each other guts or not, they still did their job they were paid to do and go and make sure that the American people best interest is being served to the people. They did it.
Yeah.
But now we can see it is that the two parties are so fierce at each other that the rights of the American people are being trampled upon, and they're empowering themselves to control the people. See, that's what the big problem is. It's a matter of control. And this is why I want the American people to really wake up, because we now have to see exactly what the two sides bring to the table. The truth is in front of our face right now, that we have to understand that what the Democrats and the culture war and the culture change they brought to this country was not good for the American people.
Right.
And even though they knew that it was bad for the American people, but it was outside interests who wanted to bring this country to its knees so it could be controlled by the Democratic Party and the George Soroses and the Obamas and the Clintons and all the other oligarchs who was working behind an incompetent Joe Biden. They made an attempt, and this is where the good and the evil come in at. Even though the Republican Party is not the party that, is a righteous party, but they are doing things that are right, and they're keeping the structure that the American people are used to, and that's how the country should be ran. It should not go ahead, Doc.
I would say for the most part, the Republican Party is doing that. The only ding I really have on the Republican Party is the fact that they're really not there for races that are needed. Like, for example, in Wisconsin, it was very difficult for the local GOP to get the support of the national GOP in a race that was very important when it came to, I guess, their state Supreme Court in Wisconsin. And so I look at things like that and I'm like, okay, Republican Party, you can do better. They are doing what they need to do. But when it comes to the very local politics, I'm talking about being mayors and commissioners and councilmen, they're really not there. They're not focused on those races. And those races are extremely important because somebody brought it up best. You've got all of these other cities, towns, we'll mention maybe Detroit or New York City or even Chicago, and they have Democratic leadership and the cities are in shambles. However, the Republican Party really isn't there at the local level to help the city, and they don't support those races. Half the time, they're not even on the ballot.
Exactly.
So it's almost like they'll let those cities fall apart so they can argue, hey, we can do better for you, but you're not at the local level to do better.
To the RNC, thank you for checking me out, but that is the problem. The Republican Party has not been visible, especially in the minority communities like they should. And the sad thing of it is, to the national chairman of the Republican Party, it's going to be difficult coming up in these midterm races. And I want you guys to hear me closely, because I know you watch my show and I appreciate it. If you don't create a Republican Party that is willing to get into the trenches and make themselves known in the Black community to build trust as an alternative to what they've seen. See, this is what the Republican Party needs to do. They need to clean house, because like here in Chicago, they have Republicans who are really Democrats. And they hold key positions. They hold key positions. And the Republican Party here does not actually be visible to the point where they're reaching out into the Black community. They're standing against, helping with crime. They're not standing against police brutality. They're not trying to create legislation to make the communities better. And so that's why the Democrats have had a way to get into the Black community, because even though they don't do these things to help Black people, they still lie and say they are going to. And that's the hope that Black people have, and how they've been able to manipulate the Black community, saying, yeah, these guys won't even consider it, but we'll think about it. Just give us a chance. Your thoughts?
Well, and that's why I founded the Redemption Party, because of that very fact. I really noticed that both parties have truly failed the American people. On the Democrats, over promising and under delivering. And then with the Republicans, they're just scared to come in at all. And it makes no sense, because Frederick Douglass actually founded this party. He's a Black man. It doesn't make a lot of sense that you're not in the Black community. It doesn't bode well. And, a Democrat can't call the Republican Party racist because you're not showing up. You're not doing the groundwork. And like I said, that is why I founded the Redemption Party, because I wanted a party that was based on tenets. I wanted a party that was not really absorbed in ideology to where we see now, like, I'm going to be against something just because you're for it. With the Redemption Party, we have fiscal responsibility, limiting federal government to empower local government, one community at a time. And that is the basis of the party. And that's it. You don't get out of that. You don't get around that. There's not all these ideologies swinging the party back and forth. We have a one-track mind, and that is to help this country one community at a time.
Well, if the RNC is to be successful, and creating and bridging the gap between themselves and the minority community, especially in the Black community, then they have to get some boots on the ground, and they have to be sincere about helping the community and not just doing it for a photo op. And I think that's what's happening a lot here, like here in the state of Illinois. They have a party, but then it's a lot of infighting going on with each other. Mm-hmm. Just like any other thing. But at the end of the day, they have to, it's their job and responsibility to the people that they represent. They have to come to some conclusion and make some solutions and implement them into the communities. And they're not doing that, because just like I've been trying to get in touch with the people at the RNC. Y'all watch the show. Y'all got my number. Y'all call me and I can tell you exactly what needs to be done if you're going to be a real player or an alternative organization that a Black man created like Frederick Douglass, on the things that you need to do to assist the Black community. And that's just the bottom line. It's got to be, no matter what party it is, because now Black people have stepped away from the Democrats, and rightfully so.
Exactly.
It's rightfully so. Malcolm said it best: do not put all of your eggs in one basket. And that's what Black people did. We put our eggs in the Democratic basket, and that basket seems to get holes in the bottom of it every time that we put them up in there. And they say, well, it'll hold for a while. As soon as the election is over, all the eggs fall out and break. And it's, well, next time we can get it.
Right.
But the thing of it is now there needs to be a party that steps up.
Yes.
To fill the void, because I don't want to feel like I have to accept the lesser of two evils.
Exactly. And it shouldn't be that way.
But any party that's going to be a political party, you have to maintain the ideology of, I am a servant to the people. That's the ideology that they've gotten away from. Mm-hmm. Because when you are a servant to the people, you're going to do everything right so that the people can prosper or take care of the needs of the people the right way, Doc.
Yeah, because it's not rooted in their party. That's the problem. Like I said, that's what separates the Redemption Party from the Republican and the Democratic Party. See, it's rooted in our party. It's in our tenets, one community at a time. that is focusing on the citizens that are there, one community at a time. So that's, and our candidates have a pledge, that they have to respect and do what they're supposed to do according to their constituents. So we can hold people's feet to the fire. They can't wiggle out of it. They have to do their jobs. And as much as we want the Democrats and the Republicans to do their jobs, they're not servicing the people. They're servicing the people that give them money. And that's one of the biggest issues that both parties do have.
And this is what I say to my community, to the Black community. We must stop sleeping and awake, because we need to do research on the candidates that we choose and we put into office. It's just that simple. We cannot rely on radio station WVON. And while I'm at, I want to say something to the Black community regarding WVON radio station here, 1590 here in Chicago. It is not conducive to get good information regarding situations that's going on in this country from WVON, because WVON is owned by the Democratic Party. They will never give Black people here in Chicago correct information. And I want to send a shout out to Karen Hicks. She's a friend of mine. She is as old school like I am. We grew up on WVON radio when it was Purvis Spann, the blues man, Herb Kent Cool, and all those old school DJs and personalities who helped build Chicago and help build the Black community with their news, putting out good news, putting out information to the Black community where there was opportunities. That WVON is gone. That radio station, it is a historical station, but it is poisoning the Black community because it's not giving both sides of the story. That's what I'm saying. And WVON, you have broken the code of journalism, because it's always two sides, it's three sides. It's your side, my side, and the real side, okay? And we have to maintain the level of continuity to say that we're going to keep it real. We're going to keep it to the truth. And WVON is not doing that, and I wanted to put them on blast. And so other leaders who have been here in Chicago, man, it's sad in our city that we have Black leaders who take money and who ride the middle of the fence. They'll take money from the Democrats. They'll take money from the Republicans. They have no honesty nor integrity, or really want to help the Black community, but help themselves. And so it's that divided house. But somehow I'm trying to let Black people know this. As individuals, use your common sense, because do the research. Take your phone out and look at what a candidate brings to the table. And then you can choose wisely. We cannot rely on what grandmama was a Democrat or my old daddy was a Republican. We cannot, as a community, we cannot rely on the media and anybody else to tell us who we should vote for or who they think might be best for our community. It's time for Black people to awake. We need to research programs that are not good for us. We need to turn those programs down because they're not being ran the proper way to achieve positive results. Doc?
Yeah. And you're so correct. And it's very unfortunate that, they can use the media in a way, but it can be a positive, right? Because at least you know what they're saying, right? And researching it for yourself, because we have to. And it's unfortunate that it's allowed to have propaganda be placed on the American people. That Smith-Month Act really needs to be reversed and put back to its prior usage, prior to 2012, I think, where because Barack Obama changed it to where it was okay to disseminate propaganda on the American people. But I really want to make this call to Republicans. I was like, okay, you guys are in charge of the House and the Senate, fix it. Or are you using it to your benefit as well? right? Because when I see things like that and I'm like, you're not fixing it, then that means you're using it as well. And you really don't care about the American people.
Doc, I got a couple of videos I want to queue up so our viewers can get some receipts on what we're talking about. The continuation of the Democratic Party to paint fear and make it seem as though the country is collapsing because of the tariffs that President Trump is administering to the foreign countries. But think about this. Look how bad that our economy's been for the past 4 years, how we've been hated and disrespected, the corruption, the culture changes. I mean, our country has been a hellhole. So what the president is doing with these executive orders is he's turning things back to the way that they was. And the Democratic Party, I keep saying it specifically, they're filing lawsuits, they're trying to incite riots, they're creating all sorts of diversions because when President Trump took office and he created Doge, and then they started telling the American taxpayers where their money going, then the Democrats, they're guilty. And some of the Republicans too. But more than ever, the Democrats are guilty for stealing taxpayer dollars. And this Doge thing caught them off guard. They were not able to steal more money. They are worried because now the American people know that they're nothing but a bunch of crooks, liars, and thieves, and they hate this country.
Yeah.
And it's coming out, and it's about to be proved. So to the American people of patriots across this country, don't listen to this foolishness with what the tariffs going to do and this and that. I'm telling you again, as a financial person, what President Trump is doing is he's forcing other countries to pick up their end that they have not done for years. So the strategy with the tariffs will increase our economy just as soon as they get through crying and whining. Check this out.
Points. Investors went running after President Trump unveiled his global tariffs. The Dow selling off nearly 4%, the S&P 500 down nearly 5%, and the tech-heavy NASDAQ getting hit the hardest, dropping nearly 6%. Thursday marked the NASDAQ's worst day since March of 2020, and this is the fifth largest point drop in the history of the Dow Jones Industrial Average.
Okay, this sounds bad. I know a lot of people are freaking out, looking at their 401ks, and they're worrying, and I get that. But is now really the time to panic?
It's to be expected. This is a patient that was very sick. We really inherited a terrible economy, as you know, with a lot of problems, including loss of manufacturing and plants closed up all over the country. A sick patient that went through an operation on Liberation Day, and it's going to be a booming country.
Now I want to stop it. Now, your thoughts on that, Doc?
Yeah, and I know what he was trying to do and just give people a visual. It's like, sometimes when people do have operations, their blood pressure may drop. Obviously, they're going to have scars from healing, but it's going to take time for them to recover.
Yes.
Right? So once you cut out anything that is not supposed to be there, you're going to have time to recover. And that's the mode that we're in now. A lot of the sell-off that people were freaking out. It's like, yeah, because now it's a level playing field. Yes. Now you're going to have to pay, let's just say, for example, if we were paying 25%, now you're going to have to pay 25% to have your goods over here. Just like we have to pay 25% to have our goods over there. And that's the fair trade going on with the tariffs. They're no longer going to be able to flood our country with their products at a lower tariff, right?
Yes.
And then we put our goods over there, and they're just like, oh, well, you have to pay a higher tariff for your things to be over here, and then really not even sell our goods over there. Right. Yes, there are American countries in China, but the only reason they're there, and this is very scary, and they're getting the discounts that they're getting, because China's like, well, we'll give you this massive discount to be here, to produce your products here, but we have to be involved. and we have to know everything that you're doing. Our government has to be involved with your company. And that's a scary thing. And so now it's like, oh, we're not going to be able to be an American company here in China and then ship our goods back over to the United States at a cheaper rate.
Exactly.
Right. And then have the American people buy it from us. That's not going to happen anymore.
Exactly.
That's not going to happen.
And see, that's why I'm playing these. This is why my ideology of it is we take our time and we explain this, because when people hear it on the news, it doesn't sit in. It's like, oh God, my stocks and all of this. But what we've been under is an illegal system that the Democrats were doing a lot of insider trading during COVID. They was doing insider trading after
Republicans
COVID.
too, they're guilty.
Yep, they both were, but at the same time, that wasn't the time for that, because our country we needed to be brought back to a place. But to the American people and patriots across this country, they never meant for us to be brought back to a place of where we're coming right now.
Right.
And so that's what I'm telling folks. We have to really understand what's going on, the dynamics of the tariffs and how they operate in the financial world. And what President Trump has done, he is a genius, because now all of the leaders who was talking that crap about not paying the tariffs or we were finna go to war, now they're saying, guess what? You're right. We're going to pay our back taxes, and we're going to make sure that we can do business with you, because we've been able to do anything we wanted to do under the other administration. I'm going to play a little bit more of this clip. I want you to watch this.
$1,000 without college degrees go MAGA? Why did that happen? And fast forward to yesterday, Liberation Day. Who's happiest today about Trump's reciprocal tariffs? Well, obviously not Wall Street, not those who raked in big money offshoring jobs. In fact, they're busy trying to scare you into turning on Trump. The sky is falling. The sky is definitely falling.
New fears of an American and maybe global recession. This is one of the biggest down days since COVID.
What makes this one different is that it's not a market event. Secondarily, it is. It's really an event that impacts the real economy, Main Street.
Nothing is safe. There is really nowhere to hide, because retail is generally an important sector.
Ignore the noise. Take a breath. Remember what Trump said about the tariff doomsdayers on Wednesday?
Never forget, every prediction our opponents made about trade for the last 30 years has been proven totally wrong. They were wrong about NAFTA. They were wrong about China. They were wrong about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. In my first term, they said tariffs would crash the economy. Instead, we built the greatest economy in the history of the world.
No one has been more consistent over the years,
Your thoughts, Doc. And that happened.
Yeah, and he wasn't wrong. But see, right after that, COVID hit. And a lot of people don't remember. It's almost like, okay, now we have, and COVID literally destroyed our country, because it broke down the whole supply chain on purpose. Because now they're turning around and saying, well, COVID wasn't that bad. Actually, it did have a 99% recovery rate. Oh, yeah, we probably shouldn't have shut down. They did all that stuff on purpose.
And they knew it. I mean, Dr. Fauci and them knew about the vaccination. They knew that this stuff could have been cured with ivermectin. They knew all of this, but they created such a fear. And that's when a lot of laws was changed during COVID. A lot of the culture stuff, you got Pete Buttigieg, whatever his name was, that's a transportation secretary, the first gay, whatever. I mean, that's when we saw all of these new cultures coming out during COVID, which was affecting us as the American citizens. So that's how all the changes were made. And so when President Trump did get back into office, that's why you saw all these organizations who were running around to 2025. No, what they knew was when Trump got into office that he would find out how bad they had really messed this country up, and he would start reversing the trend so that the American people could get back in control of the government and the rights of the American people could be restored. Yeah. Listen, now, on the tariff side, they continue to act as if tariffs are going to destroy the country. I'm going to play a little bit more of this.
And calling out the globalists' grandiose promises than Donald Trump.
I'd make our allies pay their fair share. We're a debtor nation. Something's going to happen over the next number of years with this country, because you can't keep going on losing $200 billion, and yet we let Japan come in and dump everything right into our markets and everything. It's not free trade. If you ever go to Japan right now and try to sell something, forget about it, Oprah. Just forget about it. It's almost impossible. They don't have laws against it. They just make it impossible. They come over here, they sell their cars, their VCRs, they knock the hell out of our companies. The poorest person in Kuwait, they live like kings. And yet they're not paying. We make it possible for them to sell their oil. Why aren't they paying us 25% of what they're making? It's a joke.
Your thoughts? That was 1988. Now, wait a minute. Listen to this. To the American people of pages across this country, that was Donald Trump in 1988 saying the same stuff he's saying now that he was saying way back then. Why are we... So how can we not trust him? Because he already knows. He had that ideology way back then, and he knew what needed to be done to help the country get back on track.
Yeah, because he's a businessman. You know, and a lot of times people will say, well, he's a horrible businessman, and all these companies. Look, I've worked for major corporations. They file bankruptcy all the time. They just do it all the time. I work in the legal department. I've drafted the documents. I've been at the signing parties. Like, they do this stuff all the time. They hide assets. And there's nothing illegal about it. It's the way they go about it, right? Because they're trying to make sure that they sell off bad parts of the company to keep their main companies solvent. All right. So a lot of times, like I said, people will say, well, he's a horrible businessman. Well, his name is on a lot of buildings around the world.
Sure is.
I don't think he's a horrible businessman. Now, you may not like the way he goes about doing business. There's a difference, because he is a bull in a china shop. Like, he will just like completely destroy and demolish everything that he needs to, and is like, okay, let's build it back up again. Let's go. But that's what our government needs right now, because for far too long we've been dealing with we need to save money here and there, so we'll get it done. And then they get like 5 seconds of pushback, and they're like, okay, we'll stop. Reagan's been trying to do this.
Now, let me
it's crazy.
Let me to the American people and patriots across this country. I hope you saw what I saw. Okay. In 1988, Donald Trump was on an up-and-coming Oprah Winfrey show.
Yes.
Oprah didn't have a dime. But her show ratings went up when she had Donald Trump on her show, and then she went on to become who she is today.
Right.
Now, if they were friends back then in 1988, why all of a sudden, as the years went on, they've been friends, but the moment he saw that the Democrats were going to do what they would, see, I kept telling people, I said, when Trump got out of the Democratic Party, he saw what they were going to do with the culture war, he saw all of that.
Yeah.
And Oprah and them was part of it. And that's why they hated Trump, was because he tried to tell the American people, hold up, wait a minute, they finna do some unsavory thing. They finna change they're gonna destroy this country. And he saw that. And it wasn't until when he jumped out the Democratic Party and started to he even tried to warn the Republicans.
Yeah, because he wanted to start his own party. And the Republicans were like, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Because they knew if he started his own party, they'd have been done.
Well, he already started. It's called MAGA.
Yeah. Within the Republican Party has definitely swept across the party. Now, there are still some that, claim to be true conservatives, which is fine. There are some that are against, making America great again, because they see it as a cult. And it's an interesting culture, because I do know some Republicans, and it's sad because just like the Democrats, they really need to go back to the drawing board.
Yes.
Excuse me, and build up their party. That's it. You need to stop, say, what is our focus beyond ideology? What do we truly stand for? And then move forward. It's like they're refusing to do that, because without the ideology, they cannot keep up the confusion. And of course, their donors aren't going to like it. And you got to realize donors play both sides.
They
They
do.
play both
They
parties.
do. They
They will
do.
invest money into both parties to keep this argument going so that you think you have choice. And the thing is, we do have choice. We need better politicians that are not going to take the dark money.
And that's the truth, and that's why I urge Christians to run for office and do the right thing. You don't have to be a Christian. You just have to do your job.
That's it.
If the politicians just did their job, if they fulfilled their job description on what they were going there to do, create legislation, create services, and all sorts of stuff to take care of the U.S. citizens. If the politicians just did their job and was happy with the pay that they're getting, the six-figure salaries and all the perks, and this country would run smoothly.
Yes.
But when you throw lying and cheating and stealing and dope and all the rest of that stuff into a government like it is, and our government was and our government still is, because they still doing the same stuff. They've doubled down and say, we don't care if the American people know how bad we are. We still gonna keep lying. We still gonna keep telling people he's a racist. All of these things continue. You would think the Democratic Party would go back to the drawing board. They would sit down. They would try to do something positive in the communities they say they're gonna help, without all the lying to my, well, give me the burger today and I'll pay you next Tuesday. That old Popeye stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, they're tripling down on their position, having men in women's sports. They're still tripling down on that. Even here in the state of Georgia, they had a vote to no longer fund transsexual surgeries in prison. Okay, hear me out.
we don't want to pay.
We had to create a bill here in Georgia to say we're not going to pay for that. And guess what? The majority of the Democrats, when the vote came up, they walked out. They just refused to vote. Now, there were 2 Democrats that voted no against it, right? And all of the Republicans voted yes, we're no longer going to fund this. And I'm like, wow, for all of those Democrats that walked out, guess what? That was your vote. But you chose not to have a position, which means that you support it. You still support it. Just because you didn't vote doesn't mean you don't support this. You support this.
Well,
you do.
The transgender movement was one that had to be pushed at the particular time, because they knew that they were going to lose the election and they had to still win. And they had to go all the way out in the last 4 years to put stuff into place so that they could have a fighting chance if they lost. And that was their, they said, well, you know what? We're going to do everything we can in these 4 years with Joe Biden and Kamala and Barack. And then whatever we can get out of that, whatever they reverse, we're going to fight like hell to keep it. I think that's one thing that should have been done. There should be no men in women's sports. That's why women wanted sports for their own self. They wanted to compete against their own selves, just like men competed against other men. So, I mean, that's what the Democratic Party is pushing. They're pushing a culture, a new culture, a new race of people. That's what the trans were. They're supposed to be not the race that God created, but a race that was created by Barack Obama and his friends.
Yeah. And it's crazy because nobody wants this. No one wants this. Like a lot of the reason why people are leaving the Democratic Party is because of that. They do not want this, but they still don't care. They do not care about their constituents. They're like, nope, we're going to triple down on this. I mean, I saw a video the other day. The LGB, they're lesbian, gay, bisexual. They're like, we don't want to be a part of the rainbow coalition of the LGBTQIA+. They're like, we're not a part of that. We're over here. Now, in my opinion, I'm like, when you have people that are lesbian, gay, and bisexual, and they're just like, that's too much for us. I mean, look.
Well, it is a lot. It is a lot of people who are gay or that does not like what the groomers. That's what they're called. The groomers are doing.
They are called groomers.
They're groomers. They're the ones who are pushing it in the schools. They're the ones who are pushing it through the legislation. I mean, they're the ones who are making it a separation in the country on how people feel about, being homosexual.
Yeah, because they're tired of MAPS being pushed as well, which is minor attracted persons. If people haven't heard of that, and that's pedophilia. And what the children have been going through is grooming pedophilia, being told, don't tell your parents what we talked about here. Why would you ever tell a child that?
Well, the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party set that into place in all the major cities, especially in the black schools. And the sad thing of it is you got black teachers going along with it. And then you have a lot of DEI hired teachers who are transes and all like that. They don't even have teaching degrees. It needs to go back, and the states need to implement the fact that if you are going to be a teacher in the schools with our children, you need to have to prove that you are capable. You need to have those degrees, and they need to be to a place where you can prove that you can teach. Because, with DEI, you don't have to have a degree. You just have to be a certain race. I'm gay, so I can get the job. And that's what they did.
Because I think Jasmine Crockett just admitted that in one of her many, I won't call it a concession speech from her seat in some of these committees, but she actually stated, like when she went to her first job, she goes, you need to hire me because I'm Black. And that's ridiculous.
And that's
just ridiculous. You have no credentials. You have no actual, experience, but because you're Black, that's why somebody should hire you. It's like, no, that's not a reason.
You're right, Doc, but listen to this. We saw that in the Biden administration. We had Pete Buttigieg, transportation. Then we had the gay guy that was head of the energy company that was stealing people luggage and all that other stuff. That was the whole move, and that was part of what Barack Obama did. He put these people in place behind the taxpayers' back because they knew that when Joe stole his way in, they just pushed it out and they just did whatever they wanted to do to the American people. I got another clip I want to play. This is from Jesse Walters. Check this out, Doc.
The Jesse Waters prime time tonight.
I cannot think of another president in my lifetime who knocked down the stock market simply by opening his mouth than Jimmy Carter. Eureka! I have found him.
Everyone's having a good old tariff tantrum.
I think it's going very well. It was an operation, like when a patient gets operated on.
Talk about a big cover-up. I just want to ask a simple question. Who in the heck was running the country? I honestly really question that.
They're saying Joe Biden wasn't the president. So who was?
They need to almost burn the house down.
DEI is dead. Isn't this its funeral?
Oh, absolutely not. You must be kidding. You're a comedian?
Happy DEI Thursday. Plus,
I am a proud soy boy.
the operation's over. The doctor said it went well. The patient will be out in a minute, and you'll be able to say hi.
It was an operation, like when a patient gets operated on, and it's a big thing. I said this would exactly be the way it is. We have $6 or $7 trillion coming into our country, and we've never seen anything like it. The markets are going to boom, the stock is going to boom, the country is going to boom, and the rest of the world wants to see, is there any way they can make a deal?
Trump says the prognosis is that the patient will be stronger, bigger, better, and more resilient than ever before. But first, it has to heal. And healing takes time. Mm-hmm. The American economy is in pain. It's been walking around with a limp for decades. Emergency surgery was necessary.
For 40 years, we have gone down that pathway. We've seen closing factories. We've seen rising inflation. We've seen the cost of housing so high that most Americans can't afford to buy a home right now. President Trump is taking this economy in a different direction. He ran on that. He promised it, and now he's delivering. And yes, this is a big change. I'm not going to shy away from it, but we needed a big change, Lawrence. We cannot keep going down the Joe Biden globalist pathway where we have $2 trillion of peacetime debt and deficits. We have manufacturing disappearing. That is not working for Americans. We've got to take this country in a different direction.
Kamala Harris admitted during the campaign that the American dream was dead. She didn't have to say it, but we all knew it. Her boss and his gang killed it. American workers haven't gotten a real raise in 30 years. And the saddest part is our own companies conspired with the politicians to keep it that way. They moved factories out of the country, used dirt cheap foreign labor, and sold the product back into the country with no tariff and made a killing. And then they said, enjoy your cheap TVs. Well, what good's a cheap TV if you're barely making...
Hold up, Doc. That's exactly...
But I've been saying that for a minute, and people just kind of like, they sit there, look at me, and they're like, huh? Yeah. That's what we're trying to say. I mean,
exactly.
Roe told people, when NAFTA gets in place, you're going to hear a giant sucking sound. Okay? He wasn't wrong.
But you know, see, and this is what reason why I'm playing this, because I want our listeners to see how easy it is that we educated. Excuse me, we've educated ourselves, because, like I said, I'm from the financial world and contracting with the Navy and the Army and the Corps of Engineers, so I know how an economy can roll. But a lot of people don't know that. And what you said before, you have not heard this clip, but what you said before we put it on is exactly what they're saying, what's going on. Let's listen to a little bit more of that.
Honey, your factory closed down and you live in a ghost town. Watch your shows and shut up is basically what they said. Is that really the best we can do for the country?
What gives you so much certainty that this is going to work and that this isn't going to hurt the everyday American?
The largest tariff and trade barrier country in the world is China, and they don't have inflation. So these things don't occur the way people suggest they do. This is a reordering of global trade for the benefit of America. These people have all been living in our house. They've been driving our car. They come by and visit, open our fridge, and eat our food whenever they want. They've taken advantage of us. Today was the day of the beginning of saying, I'm sorry, you can't just live for free off of us. You have to pay.
It's only been 24 hours since the surgery, and the media is already saying, they can't walk. Paul Krugman wonders, will malignant stupidity kill the world economy? Well, Krugman knows a thing or two about being malignantly stupid. He's the one who said if Trump was elected in 2016, he'd plunge the world into a recession. Instead, wages rose, unemployment hit 50-year lows, the stock market hit all-time highs, and we had zero inflation. And Trump's not worried about the world economy. He's worried about the American one. Jim Cramer's chiming in, too.
We have a market that was doing extremely well last year until the Trump administration saw the level.
Now, Doc, let's talk about that. Now, you see what they're saying. And if Trump had that idea in 1988, you would have think that some of those politicians would have implemented that, but they didn't. No. So now that he's actually doing it, it's working. Your thoughts?
Well, and that's the thing. Like I said, these politicians took dark money to destroy America. Like, I just need people to get there. If someone is actually trying to help you, you will see the results of that. You will see the fruits of that labor. There has been no fruit from their decisions. There's been rotten fruit. There's been a decline in our economy. You know, when you look at Russia's subway system compared to the New York subway system that we spend billions of dollars on, what's going on? And I'm looking at that, and I'm trying to make the comparison of the tariffs with that. It's like, hey, you can go over to China, you can see their economy is booming. They don't have inflation.
Exactly.
Why? Because they're not selling our stuff in their country to the level we're selling their stuff in our country.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they're making money off us hand over fist, and we don't make a dime off them. And that's what the American people need to see, where we're breaking it down like that, because you have to understand in business, We can't continue to open our doors and let people take, and they not pay. And then when we go to your country, we're shelling out our money like crazy. So this is much needed. Now I want to play a little clip because, the demise of the Democratic Party is at hand. And so I want the American people to see exactly what's going on.
Stuck in traffic. They were getting cut off. Someone in the president's entourage thought, quote, Trump could get rammed. A year later, he was shot. But the day after Butler, security was still lacking. Trump's family was staying at a hotel in Milwaukee at the convention, but the Secret Service refused to put magnetometers at the entrance. And then they tried to fire Trump's most trusted agent, Sean Curran, one of the guys who saved Trump. Cheadle, the weasel, wanted him to be the fall guy for Butler. Trump's team said, if you fire him, we're going public with everything. Cheadle backed down, and Trump appointed Curran to Secret Service director. Did Biden even know his people were putting his opponent in the crosshairs?
Talk about a big cover-up. I mean, we've been talking a lot about Donald Trump lately. I just want to ask a simple question. Who in the heck was running the country? If the president's mental acuity was in question and some days he's on and some days he's off, was the guy really capable of doing the job day to day? I honestly really question that.
At this point, we can't confirm Biden was aware of anything that happened in his term. Wow. His team knew he was mentally defunct even before 2020.
Right.
They were sitting in the Oval talking about campaign strategy for his second run. And one aide said this, in 2020, we had this great excuse of the basement, of COVID, to keep him out of the public eye.
Right.
We no longer have that excuse. What do we do? Biden couldn't even celebrate his favorite holiday, St. Patty's. Obama's chief of staff was in the room and saw Biden using a teleprompter to talk to people. Quote, if the president needed a script for a small gathering of Irish guys, how would he survive the rigors of a campaign? How are they letting this thing go on? This is crazy. Everyone knew about Biden's condition, and then the dam broke on debate night. The machine that protected him took him out. Obama's knife cut the deepest. As the walls closed in, Biden felt abandoned. It was his perceived betrayal by Barack Obama that stung most of all. What hurt was that Obama hadn't picked up the phone and called him. Ron Klain, Biden's chief of staff, tried to save the ship. After the debate, Klain told Joe to stay in D.C. and fight the coup. But Biden took the weekend off and did a photo shoot with Annie Leibovitz at Camp David instead. Then Klain tried to win over the squad by setting up a Zoom call.
Now, Doc.
It was a dumpster fire.
Now we're going to talk about that before we get out of here. To the American people and patriots across this country, now all of a sudden, when Joe Biden had been sick a long time, Doc. He was really sick.
Yeah, he was.
There need to be some heads rolls, those Obamas, all of those people who were saying Joe was well, that Democratic Party head, they need to see some jail cells. What are your thoughts on that, Doc?
Well, Barack Obama said, I would love to have a third term. I would just need somebody to be the front man while I'm in their ear, in their earpiece. And he did that. That's what
he did with Kamala. He did that with Kamala.
And he was also doing it with Joe Biden.
Yes, he was.
To an extent, right? Because Joe, when he was reading from the teleprompter, he was literally reading from the teleprompter. He read the prompts that he was supposed to be given from the teleprompter. Even when he had the script in front of him, when he was supposed to call out reporters, he would read, call reporter from NBC. And say their thing. So we know that there was a decline, and it was truly abuse. And it was very sad to see that a party they were so bent on having this person be president so that they could push through laws that did not service the American public, that they were more concerned with power than they were actually serving the people of this country. Now all they want to do is scream and yell and say, hey, you need to rail against this person because we don't like them and we need to just rail. It's like, no one can listen to that anymore. Our country is in shambles. The cities are in shambles, and it's because of your policies that we're here. Things need to change.
Well, you know what, Doc, and you're so correct. And you just sort of just set things up for the next clip before we get out of here. To the American people and patriots across this country, what's happening is this. Even though we're sitting here and we're coming up out of this invasion and so forth, the Democratic Party is still doing things. Now, you would think that with President Trump removing all the illegals out of the country, that the country is coming back, the economics is coming back. This will allow job opportunities for all minorities, communities, and everybody as the country grows. But the Democratic Party still doubled down because they want us to think that President Trump is a racist, he's doing all these things that's going to harm us, but they're not telling the American people that the Democrats are going to court to fight the president from rebuilding this country because they don't want the illegal guns. Check this out, and then we're going to get out of here, Doc. I want you to respond to this.
News, Democrats Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, and the Democratic National Committee have filed a lawsuit against President Trump to stop his executive order banning non-citizens from voting in U.S. elections. Yep, they're openly trying to rig elections by making it easier for non-citizens, including millions of illegal aliens, to vote, and by making it harder to catch them when they do. Now, why do you think Democrats would do this? In my view, it's because at least 80% of non-citizens vote for Democrats when they finally get a chance to do so in one way or another, and Democrats desperately need their support. According to a recent survey by Trump-hating CNN, only 21% of Americans approve of Democrats in Congress. That's a record low, as it should be, and I'm hoping it drops even further this year. We'll see. I'm Joseph Bovino, America First immigration and business attorney based in Miami and serving clients worldwide. Follow for more.
Doc, your closing comments on this?
You know, it's unfortunate. You know, President Trump, like him or not, wants to do right by the citizens of this country.
Yes.
And the Democratic Party has made their stake in the sand that that's not what they want. They would much rather have people that are here illegally, that they want to defend and that they want to keep here because they just want to bring up their numbers, because they want to replace people that will no longer vote for them. And those people are the Black community, because that's where they put them. They didn't put them in Martha's Vineyard. They didn't put them on Beverly Hills. They did not put them in the upscale areas. They put them into underserved areas that were already suffering and that were predominantly Black Americans. It's sick and it's sad that this is the hill that the Democratic Party really, truly wants to die on.
And you know, in saying that, Doc, you're so correct, because this should be, and this is an eye opener, and that's why we do this on this show. We want the American people to see what's going on behind the scenes as they're out there screaming about all these bad things. Al Sharpton talking about, are you a magician? All of that is foolishness. DEI was not bent to help Black people or nobody but those who are in power. So we show these things so that you can see they're saying one thing, but yet behind the scenes, as a politician, as an American citizen, why would you be fighting to keep illegals in the country when they should not be here? Your closing words, Doc, and I'm out.
Exactly. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us for this show. And again, when you see all of these things occurring, look up, for your redemption is near. And with that, please check out the Redemption Party at usaredemptionparty.com. We are looking for candidates to be servants of the people, not politicians, and members of our party. So again, that's usaredemptionparty.com.
Thank you, Doc, and we'll be talking soon. Thank you so much. Folks, I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope that you can share this around, because you really need to use common sense and start thinking about where our country is going and where it would be at had we not got President Trump in office, who are trying to return the power back to the people. And to Black Americans, this is a time that we need to really pay close attention to politics, because politics is the way that this country and the world is being ran. And if we do not understand politics, if we do not understand economics, and if we do not know the rules of the game on how this world is ran, then we will be lost forever. So Black folks, start researching, start asking questions, because you know what? Our future depend on it. Our children depend on it. God bless you. We'll see you. Have a great weekend.